Hey, what's going on, guys? I know it's been a while. Wanted to give you an update before I get into current events. You can see the boxes packed out behind me. I'll be moving up to my house in the mountains in Heber City really soon, a couple days. Really excited about that. One, I'm getting out of Provo. You know, my history with Provo's a little shaky. That fight's not over for me. The actual fight is over on the case side, but the fight isn't over for me by a long shot. To update you on Greg Lappin as well, if you haven't heard, his case has been completely dismissed, and we're on the same sheet of music. But I need to get and displace from here and get back into my house in the mountains where I belong. Part of that I'm excited about is to do content on preparedness and living my prep life, because although it's not new to me, getting into that house and starting off on the right foot and preparing my family for all the things that are going on in the world is going to be really cool to document, and I hope you look forward to that on this channel. Everything from renewable energy, generators, food prep and security. I got a 40-foot container being moved in a couple of days. I'm going to do it the right way. I did that before a couple of years ago with, the honeybees, the goats, etc. I'm just going to do it in a better way and have you guys more involved in it. If you want to see specific content related to preparedness, let me know, and I hope to provide that for my Patreon members on my Patreon channel. Patreon.com/Mike Glover. I look forward to doing the underground as well after this is all said and done. So my voice is gone, and there's a reason for that. And I'm not at the top of my game right now because I'm recovering from another surgery, a second surgery. So the first surgery I had was lower back surgery, and about 13 days into it, ran into complications, which according to that surgery, it's like a 1% chance of running into complications. And when it rains, it pours. But I'm okay with that. 13 days into it, long story short, had a blood clot with bone fragments in it. And it was sitting on a nerve and causing all these issues. They did emergency surgery last week. And here I am. I think it's the first day I'm able to kind of stand up and move around. Still in pain, still not feeling well. But I wanted to provide some content for you guys. And it brings me profound purpose. I hate not doing it. For those suffering through the same, those including victims of that hurricane that has caused so much devastation, understand that we're not always in control. It's not our plan, it's God's plan. And just do your best to stay focused, to stay positive, and stay on course, because it's going to get better. There's a whole bunch of things going on in the world, and I can't stress the importance of just paying attention. I do this show because I want to be able to kind of condense all this chaos around us for you, distill that information, and provide you with some education along the way and being best prepared. But even I'm getting overwhelmed by the chaos that we're facing. Let's talk about this hurricane. Look at the amount of destruction this hurricane has caused. Or as you can see from the damage, you're looking at 2 million people still without power. And as of the recording of this video, 119 people dead. That's expected to rise, especially in North Carolina, where you have high as 600 to 1,000 people still missing in these towns. The difficulty is still the logistics in getting supplies to these people. And there's a huge dependency on the federal government, local and state governments to be able to support you, where these people had to fight for survival in the moments, but also for days and weeks to come, they're going to have to fight for their own survival. And that's the difficult thing here, right? In catastrophes, we don't understand that it is the worst case scenario, and we often don't prepare for the worst case. And the detriment is, in the worst case, we underestimate, especially emergency services and organizations that are meant to take care of us post the event, their ability to take care of everybody at once, thousands of people, right? Emergency services, for example, that are meant to take care of those who are dealing with emergencies, which are rare, now have to deal with everybody. So 911 is overwhelmed. There are stories coming out right now where 911 was taken offline, where people had to text 911. And then you have cases where sheriff's departments are going down in boats trying to rescue everybody one at a time. And if you're dealing with a medical emergency, well, good luck. You better have the skill set. If you're dealing with a situation where you're trying to pull your family out of harm's way, well, good luck, because they're addressing somebody else's problem. So that's the lesson learned in real time that we can gain from this. It takes a community of assets and relationship building to be able to take care of one another. Sure, hastily, we could do that. You can go across the street and say, hey, John, like, what's going on with you? And we could do that face to face in real time, but it's best to do it in advance. Nothing hastily done is going to be done right. If you have a deliberate plan because you've talked about it with your neighbors, you actually have exchanged information, you've actually talked about a no comms plan when the power is out, and certainly the power is going to be out for weeks, then you have an understanding of how you're going to get through it in that worst case scenario. These people this far inland haven't dealt with this in 50 years. Right now, this is the third largest catastrophe in 50 years, and it's bound to raise up in the ranks, and it's going to get a lot worse. That death toll is going to be in the hundreds, and we have no idea of the overall impact because we can't even see it based on our inability to get in there and see what's going on. I posted on X my frustration, and a lot of people responded in a negative way. My frustration with our inability to seemingly support our own citizens in our country, like the disaster that took place in Lahaina, where people are still living in hotels and we haven't rebuilt. And this situation where here we are 4 days later and the president hasn't even made a statement. Like, why is that happening? But we're spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money to fight in foreign wars, right? And a lot of people are like, well, we could do both. Really? Do you support our country allowing your taxpayer dollars in the billions going to fight and campaign for foreign wars? Do you support that? Do you support for long-range missiles with USA stamped on them being lobbed into Russia by Ukraine when Putin says specifically, if you do that, it will be World War III? Is that what you want? Because I know I fought an entire campaign of war over 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan where I knew we shouldn't have been there. And Iraq, like, not at all. Afghanistan, certainly not 20 plus years. So here we are doing it all over again when we have a lot of issues to deal with in this country. 4 days later, the Vice President of the United States, who's the candidate for President of the United States for her party, hasn't even made it to DC to talk about this major catastrophe that's impacted hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans. Not a word, not a chirp, while Biden's still asleep on vacation. That really frustrates me. So, yeah, sure, we can get frustrated, we can get political about it, but it's about what you do next. Let me highlight this tweet that I saw Elon Musk tweet a couple days ago on X. Elon Musk says, very few Americans realize that if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Far from being a threat to democracy, he's the only way to save it. He says, let me explain. Even if 1 in 20 illegals become citizens per year, something that the Dems are expediting as fast as humanly possible, that would be about 2 million new legal voters in 4 years. The voting margin in swing states is often less than 20,000 votes. That means if the Dems party succeeds, there will be no more swing states. Moreover, the Biden-Harris administration has been flying asylum seekers who are fast-tracked to citizenship directly into swing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Arizona. It is a surefire way to win every election. America then becomes a one-party state and democracy is over. Now, I'll let that sink in a little bit, but when you look at that, the stakes are high, and there is a strategy where it means less liberty, less freedom, less constitutional right for you, and more control, more power for them. We should be concerned. Now, I posted on X recently as well about this 13,099 illegal immigrants that are murderers. CNN proposed a fact check on it where they stated, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, said in a Saturday email, the data in this letter is being misrepresented. The letter that he's speaking about is a letter from the director of ICE to a Republican member of Congress, and the fallout of 13,099 illegals with homicide convictions and 425,000 illegals who have criminal convictions that have crossed the border. Trump said it was during the Harris-Biden administration. Apparently, the statistic is across multiple presidencies, including Trump's. Now, I'm not too concerned about that. In fact, my focus wasn't in the Biden-Harris administration being a problem, but the overall arching issue that, I don't know, millions have come across the border illegally, being pumped into these swing states, being expedited to vote, including every Democrat voting against legislation to allow for people to vote and show an ID? Like what? Like, you think it's necessary to show ID to withdraw from a bank, to buy a beer, to do anything in the United States basically except vote? That's problematic. And that's what Elon is talking about in this tweet, but also is reflected in illegal immigration policies. And I don't care if it's 13,099 across multiple presidencies. One is too many. So the question is, what are we doing about it? And how is it possible that 13,099 illegals are roaming the streets free in America with murder convictions at all? 425,000 with criminal convictions at all. On top of that, I just posted about the 8 illegals who were arrested recently burglarizing homes right after this disaster, taking advantage of it in Tennessee. All right, last but not least, got this story on the 45,000 port workers that are about to strike tonight at midnight. Why does that matter to you? Because it affects the East Coast and the Gulf Coast and 36 separate ports, which is about half of all the logistics for all the goods you get. So Walmart, with its 2 weeks of inventory on the shelf, that's like an every day-to-day normal routine basis. When everybody surges there, it's gone in a day. How much are you stockpiling? The recommendation from me is you stockpile not based on a 30, 60, 90-day principle, but based on how much money you got and how much storage you got. If you have the storage and capacity and you have the finances to invest in it all. And not just focused on food and water, but also things like hygiene, medical supplies, the list goes on. These things are very important because when it comes to just basic logistical issues in this country, like the supply chain turning off for a couple of days, it impacts your local grocery store. If you have a perfect recipe, like a category 4 hurricane that rips through your area, that certainly is going to impact you. Even if you're not in the center of that, not on the X, but just on the outside, you're going to have to figure out a way to survive. And stockpiling and preparing is the way that you got to do it. Guys, there's a lot of things that I can't talk about in detail here because of the suppression on YouTube. So I'm headed off to the underground. I'll link it down below. It's mypatreon.com/Mike Glover. Until next time, peace out, guys.